overseer in his house and over all that he had, the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. The blessing of the Lord was on all that he had, in house and field. So he left all that he had in Joseph's charge, and with him there he had no concern for anything but the food that he ate. These next 10 verses are no different today than what they were back then. Either a woman accuses falsely a man, or a man accuses falsely a woman. Now hear this. Now Joseph was handsome and good-looking, and after a time his master's wife cast her eyes on Joseph and said, "Lie with me." But he refused and said to his master's wife, "Look, with me here, my master has no concern about anything in the house, and he has put everything that he has in my hand. He is not greater in this house than I am, nor has he kept back anything from me except yourself, because you are his wife. How then could I do this great wickedness and sin against God?" And although she spoke to Joseph day after day, he would not consent to lie beside her or to be with her. One day, however, when he went into the house to do his work, and while no one else was in the house, she caught hold of his garment, saying, "Lie with me." But he left his garment in her hand and fled and ran outside. When she saw he had left his garment in her hand and had fled outside, she called out to the members of her household and said to them, "See, my husband has brought among us a Hebrew to insult us. He came in to me to lie with me, and I cried out with a loud voice, and when he heard me raise my voice and cry out, he left his garment beside me and fled outside." Then she kept his garment by her until his master came home. And she told him the same story, saying, "The Hebrew servant whom you have brought among us came in to me to insult me. But as soon as I raised my voice and cried out, he left his garment beside me and fled outside." When his master heard the words that his wife spoke to him, saying, "This is the way your servant treated me," he became enraged. And Joseph's master took him and put him into prison. Now comes the good news. The place where the king's prisoners were confined. He remained there in prison. But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him steadfast love. He gave him favor in the sight of the chief jailer. The chief jailer committed him to Joseph's care, all the prisoners who were in the prison, and whatever was done there, he was the one who did it. The chief jailer paid no heed to anything that was in Joseph's care, because the Lord was with him, and whatever he did, the Lord made it prosper. God's holy words.
Amen.
So Joseph had everything he possibly wanted within his grasp. Potiphar's wife could have given him the desires of his heart, but he refused. Why? A story from back in the 80s that I read about an enthusiastic but somewhat unscrupulous salesman who waited to see the purchasing agent of an engineering firm. The salesman was there to submit his company's bid or price quote for a particular job. He couldn't help but notice, however, that the competitor's bid was on the purchase agent's desk. Unfortunately, the actual figure was covered by a can of juice. The temptation to see the amount quoted became too much. So the salesman lifted the can, and his heart sank when he watched thousands of BBs pour from the bottomless can and scatter across the floor. Do you think he ever got business with that company again? So the salesman, he wanted to be successful. He wanted to get that contract. And so he saw an opportunity. All he had to do was cheat a little bit. All he had to do was touch something that wasn't his to touch. All he had to do was look. It was only one look. No one would know. No one would really get hurt except the other salesman. He probably thought to himself, he deserved this sale. People who play by the rules finish last. The other salesman would probably do the same thing. Why should he be what people would call a chump? Any and every excuse probably ran through his mind. He wanted to succeed, and all he had to do was get the sale, get ahead in his business, and was to compromise just a little bit. Joseph had been given a dream. He was going to be a great man. Others would actually bow down to him. He would be important. He would be a success in life. But when then things went horribly wrong, his brothers, who were filled with hate because of his dreams, beat him up and sold him into slavery. He was deprived of his home, his family, his very way of life. So he'd been hauled away in chains and sold like some cow or sheep at a market. His dreams of greatness, they've been ripped away from him, much like his beautiful coat that had been ripped from his body. So now he's alone, a slave owning nothing, probably not even the clothes on his back. He has nothing. He is nothing. He's unknown, uncared for, and probably scared as he can be. So as far as he knows, he's never going to see his father or family again. And then suddenly his life changes. His master notices Joseph's good work. Honest, dependable, hardworking, and it seems that everything that Joseph touches, it grows and it prospers. How come? Because God is with him. Let's look at verse 2 to 5 again. The Lord was with Joseph, and he became a successful man. He was alone in the house of his Egyptian master. His master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord caused all that he had done to prosper in his hands. So Joseph found favor in his sight and attended him. He made him overseer of his house and put him in charge of all that he had. From the time that he made him overseer in his house and over everything he had, the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. The blessings of the Lord was on all that he had in house and field. So God made him successful. God made him prosper. And God influenced Potiphar so Joseph is noticed and honored. Suddenly Joseph is given responsibility and authority of all of Potiphar's house. So everything he touches does well, and that Potiphar has no worries at all. And everything in his house and field is left to Joseph's care. But Joseph's still a slave. Joseph's still alone at night. He has no family, no girlfriends we know of, maybe no even close friends, it's hard to tell. He's a slave even though highly honored as a slave, but he's nowhere near having the authority that God had promised in the dream. Then comes along Potiphar's wife, and she offers affection, acceptance, comfort, love. And had Joseph been an ambitious and cunning man, maybe she would have stood for more than that. After all, this is an important woman. Her husband is the man of influence in Pharaoh's court. She knows people. All she has is to do and say the right words to the right people, and the dreams of Joseph's childhood could maybe become a reality. She could open doors for him. He could become a man of influence and power in the Egyptian society. All he has to do is sleep with her. I mean, he's a man, she's a woman. Is that a nice arrangement? And no one would ever know. No one would really get hurt. She's probably done this with a number of other slaves. We could speculate that one of the other slaves may have warned Joseph to watch out for the master's wife. All he has to do is touch that which is not his to touch, and he could have it all. Affection, acceptance, maybe even influence and power. All he has to do is help God out a little bit, and his dreams could become a reality. But Joseph turns her down, not once, twice, but repeatedly, day after day after day. So why would he do that? Why would he walk away from this woman and everything she represented for him? Everything he could possibly want was just within his grasp. Why would he walk away? Principally, he walked away because he'd already made up his mind. When she asked him to lay with her, he didn't have to debate it in his mind. He didn't have to tell her, let me think about it. He didn't even as much as entertain the thought in his mind. Notice the first words out of Joseph's mouth when Potiphar's wife tempts him. With me in charge, he told her, my master does not concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns he has entrusted to my care. No one is greater in this house than I. My master has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How could I then do such a wicked thing against and sin against God? Genesis 39, 8 to 9. Did you catch that? He was loyal to his master. He was respectful of marriage. But ultimately, his entire moral code was based on whether his actions would please God, whether his behavior would honor God. Even if he hadn't respected his master, even if this woman hadn't been married, Joseph would not do this wicked thing and sin against God. Offered the pleasure of sinful compromise, Joseph refused. He refused to compromise. He refused to take shortcuts. He refused just to slide through life and take the easiest route to just get by. Now remember, there will come a day, and maybe there has been a day, when you will be faced with a moral decision. A time when you will be faced with a decision to do or allow for some wrong action. And you'll know it's wrong, but there will be this temptation to just, let it slide, to compromise in order to get along or to get ahead. In life, there will be times we have to deal with a problem or a moral issue, and we are pressured to simply let it go, or to look the other way. And it would be easier to compromise and just get by. Once a hunter went out into the forest to shoot a bear. The winter fast was approaching, and he planned to make a warm coat out of the bearskin. So soon he saw a bear coming toward him. He raised his gun and took aim. "Wait," said the bear. "Why do you want to shoot me?" The hunter replies, "Because I'm cold." The bear replied, "But I'm hungry, so maybe we can reach an agreement." In the end, the hunter was well wrapped in the bear's fur, and the bear had eaten his dinner. The point: disobedience, even partial, is sin, and we will always lose out when we try to compromise with sin. It will consume us in the end. An article once told that in a period of loose and sagging morals, Satan provides many rationalizations for improper behavior. Those who would live faithful Christian lives must not be ignorant of his devices. 2 Corinthians 2:11. Wrong is always wrong, despite our efforts to excuse our actions. Proverbs 15:3, wrong is wrong even if you don't get caught. The eyes of the Lord are in every place, beholding the evil and the good. 1 John 3:4, wrong is wrong even if you do it for a good cause. The honorable purpose does not justify this honorable deed or action. The end never justifies the means. All sin is transgression of the law. Proverbs 24:9, wrong is wrong even if others are doing worse things. To the lost in the day of judgment, it will be little comfort to know others committed worse sins. The thoughts of foolishness is sin. Galatians 6:7, wrong is wrong even if it doesn't bother the conscience. The conscience can be trained or educated to accept wrongdoing. Even an honest sin of an evil done in sincerity is sinful in the sight of the holy God. Whatsoever a man or woman sows, that they shall also reap. Exodus 23:2, wrong is wrong even if it is commonly considered acceptable. The Bible says, thou shalt not follow a multitude to do evil,